I'm Jocelyn Paré. I'm the holder of the Dumont Innovation Research Chair in Medical Technology. That chair is located here at the Atlantic Cancer Research Institute in Moncton. And we're working on thermal ablations of tumoral tissues. The word ablation is a general word used to describe when we're trying to remove, destroy some undesirable tissues, on some unhealthy tissue, diseased tissues. We're concentrating on liver, mostly because liver is the most widely spread, if you wish, application at this time of the conventional thermal ablation. Ablation can be performed through surgical means, it can be performed through chemical means, and it can be performed through thermal means. Thermal means is we use a source of heat, which can be radio frequency, which can be microwave, can be cryo, because cooling is also considered a heating form, to bring tissues to necrosis and to their death. The advantage of using microwaves is mostly because microwaves inherently are unable to heat two different products at the same rate. So tumors being different in their constituency than healthy tissues, we are able to selectively heat the unhealthy tissues. Of course, there's a limit to this because once we start heating an unhealthy tissue, there is thermal losses and some heat is being diffused, so some healthy tissues are also affected. But we're still more precise and we can target which tissues we're trying to achieve. So when we begin doing this kind of work, usually people will use a certain imaging technology, so they know what they're trying to target, they know what kind of tumors they're looking at, they know what is the size, what's the volume, what's the mass, so we can get an idea of how much energy is required to burn only those tissues. What we have done on our side to try to improve the technology, which is there for 10-15 years now being used, it's used regularly, like our colleagues at McGill perform 2 or 3 a week of those on patients. What we have done is we've been saying, well, what is different? Because once we start putting a microwave antenna into the tissue to be treated, that antenna has been designed to heat that tissue. Of course, as the tissue is being burned, it changes. Its characteristics change, and therefore the antenna is losing its ability to heat properly. And that can cause damages. So to avoid that, we have thought of adding a compound. In our case, we've chosen ethanol, because ethanol is used for chemical ablation purposes. Therefore, it's already approved for use. It's considered non-toxic for the purpose that we're using it for. And the advantage of using the ethanol at the same time is we're maintaining the conditions that the antenna sees the same. As the water and the tissue is being burned, ethanol is replacing it. So what the antenna sees is the ethanol. So it remains being very efficient. There are other advantages, of course, as the ethanol diffuses and moves away from the point of emission, the volume reduces with what we call the cubic of the radius, the distance, and therefore its concentration goes down very rapidly, and it protects the tissue against overheating at a certain distance. So the technology offers the advantage of being more precise, cause less collateral damages, that is burning less of the tissues that we don't want to burn. Although, of course, we want to burn a little bit more tissues. We always want to make sure that we've burnt a little bit more. We call that the safety margin, to protect, making sure that there's no leftovers or reminiscences, because the imaging we have is precise, but it's never precise enough to know if there's not a little piece of tissue left somewhere. So we're trying to burn a little bit more to avoid that there would be recurrence, because quite often tumors, when they're recurrent, are more virulent and grow much faster afterwards than before. This is the same as is done in surgery. When you're doing the surgeon removes more tissue than required to make sure that he's removed everything as well. So there's no difference with that. The antenna is somewhat different in our case. Of course, the antenna is like a needle, really. What you see when you do the operation or the procedure is a needle. That needle is, subcutaneous. We begin from the abdomen, for example, and we're going to target all the way down to the liver and where the tumor is. We're using imaging technologies. Ultrasound is very popular because it's quicker and cheaper a bit. Sometimes people will use MRI. MRI might be a bit complicated because it might perturb the field. But there are antennas now that we have which are not sensitive to MRI, or MRI is not sensitive to the antenna. They can look the way you want, so it doesn't perturb. and basically we go. So the antenna is sophisticated because you don't want to start burning the tissue from the skin all the way down to the liver. You want to make sure that only the tip of that needle is heating. So to keep it cool, that antenna, if you were to open it, although it's only 2 millimeters in diameter, if you open it, you have several channels in there. Some channels for water to go in, water to go out at the top, and you have the coaxial unit, which is emitting the microwaves. And in our case, we have one additional conduit that allows us to bring in those chemicals that we're interested to bring in, which are bringing in faster, better control over the evolution of the microwave burn. So that's in a nutshell what we do. The advantages is because we are more precise and we have a better control on the volume. We can actually do larger tumors. Currently, people will not exceed 2. Usually 1.5 is a bit the limit of what they will try to do with this technology. We can do easily 5 in our current practice. We have done that on live animals for the first clinical trials. And now, therefore, what we want to do is, because we're more precise, we're assuming that the recovery should be faster. So we have another set of clinical trials delayed now because of the COVID pandemic. But we are going to do another set. We're going to be keeping some animals alive for a number of weeks, and we'll be monitoring their blood for a couple of weeks and monitor whether or not their immune system has been affected, whether it's stronger or not. Right now, people say there's a Episcopal effect, where when people have been treated microwave, their likeliness of being recurrent is less. The percentage of recovery or recurrence, is much less than other surgery. So we think we might be even better using ours because we have less collateral damages. And we will even be looking at long-term potential effects. Since we're doing this, we felt that we should also look as to whether or not we change what we call the transcriptome, which is the genetic material of the animal, to try to ensure that we haven't created changes that in the long term could bring in unexpected results. So that's in a nutshell what we do here, and we're having fun doing it. Good or bad, we're having fun. Thank you.